I woke up thinking I'd slipped into a bad dream. Then I realized dreams don't cut your oxygen line. I was on the floor clawing at air like a fish flung onto pavement, and my phone kept looping the footage like some cruel science experiment. If you'd told me a week earlier that the neighbor would come in and try to kill me because my machine ruined the curb appeal, I'd have laughed, but I wasn't laughing then. A week before I came home from the hospital, feeling like a man who'd been borrowed and returned tubes out, voice raspy, lungs swollen from a nasty respiratory storm that put me under for 3 days. Maria, my wife, pushed the portable oxygen cart behind her like it was a loyal dog, quiet and steady, and guided me across the threshold. Our living room smelled like lemon cleaner and the kind of hope you try not to jinx. We set the machine up by the couch, tucked the tanks near the drapes, fed the tubing where it could breathe without shouting. We thought we were safe. We had an HOA small cul-de-sac, big opinions. And in that little kingdom lived Karen Wendell, who'd made policing other people's lives her hobby and her religion. She had a permanent squint, like she'd been judging the world since birth, and a mouth designed for sticky notes of righteousness, the kind that leave marks on mailboxes, and dignity. The day she saw our oxygen gear, her lips pursed as if she'd never tasted sweet tea before, and the very next morning a note appeared on our front window taped with blue painter's tape. Medical equipment visible from the street violates HOA code 4.3b. Please relocate or shield from view. Thank you, the board. I should have torn it down, thrown it away, or taped it to her mailbox with a smile. Maria wanted to, but recovery makes you tired in ways that steal your anger. It makes you bargain with small compromises like they're medals. I nudged the tank back a foot, pulled the curtain, and told myself it was enough. But Karen isn't satisfied by reasonable solutions. She's a specialist in escalation. For days, she paraded her dog past our house 8 times a day, stopping like a metronome to stare, sometimes pretending to tie a shoe, sometimes lingering and squinting at the blinds as if she were timing a misdemeanor. The night my oxygen went silent is one I still replay more than any sports highlight, and with worse music. It felt like drowning on dry land, chest sealing like a fist, air slipping away in a way that makes seconds taste like years. I tore at the nasal cannula, tried to tug the tubing, and collapsed across the rug, heart knocking like a stranger. The machine blinked a red warning while the lamp hummed like nothing had happened and the tubing had been cleanly cut, a precise surgical snip. Not frayed, not snapped cut. We'd installed cameras after someone made off with packages a while back, and the footage, merciful and merciless, showed Karen at 2:12 a.m. slipping in like she owned the place. No gloves, no mask, no apology. She bent over my machine, took out a pair of scissors, and snipped the line as casually as if she were trimming a ribbon at a bake sale. Then she looked up, smiled at the camera, that smile of someone who thinks she's untouchable, and walked out. Calling 911 felt like speaking through cotton. The pause on the other end was the kind where you can hear someone deciding if a human being is lying or dying. It wasn't a prank. It wasn't an accident. By the time paramedics and Officer Delgado, who had that unimpressed cop stare like nothing fazed him, arrived, Maria had already come home from the shift, still wearing her scrubs, fury folded into her movements like a well-pressed sheet. She watched the footage, went cold, and the only thing she said with that flat, surgical calm was, "We're going to bury her." Karen was back the next morning walking her dog in a robe like a woman ignoring the laws of consequences, and Maria went out to confront her. Karen gave us the sanctimonious answer that should have been sold as perfume. "I just wanted to restore neighborhood harmony. Your husband's gear alarms some residents." Maria didn't hit her. She didn't have to. She moved close enough to make Karen stumble into the ornamental lilac bush and then called the police. Officer Delgado came, watched the footage, rewound it, and for the first time I saw someone's face go from bored to interested. "You have her on camera," he said like he was reading his own punchline. "We'll file charges." That afternoon, Maria turned into a woman on a mission. Lists, calls, neighbors, lawyer appointments. Every move measured, precise. I sat on the couch with a backup tank humming, wrapped in a blanket, and watched her move through the house like a storm. Funny thing about neighborhoods, people gossip about garden gnomes, but they don't usually mobilize over peacekeepers unless someone gives them a reason. That reason arrived in the form of Ms. Pearl, our next-door neighbor, who shuffled in one evening carrying a flash drive, a mug of tea, and a look that said she'd been waiting. Pearl was 80-ish with a spine made of something tougher than steel, retired systems analyst, lemon bar champion, allergic to petty HOA dictators. "I've been watching her for years," Pearl said. Not like a confession, but like reading a grocery list, and then she slid the flash drive across the table. Her backyard camera had better night vision and a microphone plus a hobbyist's knack for catching what other people missed. We plugged it in, and the audio played Karen's voice right after she left our house, clear as a bell. "Maybe this will teach him not to make the neighborhood look like a hospital," she said, and I felt my hands curl into fists. That shift, the twist, turned everything from ugly to criminal, deliberate to malicious. We could have blasted the footage online and watched the internet torch her to ash, but Maria wanted airtight evidence. We handed the files to Officer Delgado, to our lawyer, Paul Cartwright, who wore a blazer that looked like it belonged in a roaring 20s drama and carried a legal pad of wrinkled runes, into the HOA. The board's reaction was immediate and messy. 3 members resigned, others apologized, and Karen posted a defiant note to the community Facebook insisting she was the victim of hysteria. The pretrial hearing felt like a movie scene, except the props were real and the stakes were human. Judge Hallbrook, carved from common sense, watched the footage and made a sound that wasn't surprise so much as disgust. Karen tried to frame herself as the neighborhood's moral compass. Paul played the footage, and Pearl's audio played in the room with no place left for pretense. Then the twist nobody saw coming landed like a gavel. Karen had misrepresented her credentials to the HOA and to the insurers. She had a sealed fraud conviction under another name, and the insurer canceled the HOA's coverage because her actions voided liability clauses. When the judge read the notice about insurance cancellation and missing disclosures, Karen's face went the color of bad decisions. Her lawyer wilted. Her HOA influence evaporated like fog under sunlight. Outside the courtroom, the neighborhood taste for revenge turned neighborly in the best way. Stories spilled out fines for mailboxes, threats over seasonal decor, a wheelchair ramp flagged for architectural noncompliance, people who'd lost sleep over petty tyranny. A petition to decertify the HOA gathered signatures like wildfire, and Ms. Pearl organized something no one expected: a block-wide projection night. Every garage door turned into a theater, Karen's smug voice echoing down the street on loop. She tried to hose the projection down and tripped into her own hydrangeas like a cartoon villain, and someone posted that fall to Reddit before she finished rising. And by morning, the city council, local news, and even national podcasts were calling it the HOA horror case. The legal outcome read like poetic justice: guilty on counts that mattered: unlawful entry, reckless endangerment, theft of prescription medication, obstruction, and a sentence that included probation, monitored house arrest fines, and community service working with patients who relied on medical systems. The HOA was dissolved, funds frozen, and a new neighborhood council formed, democratic and loud with potluck energy instead of secret meetings. But the real lesson arrived quietly while the oxygen machine hummed like a small, honest heart. Power unchecked becomes poisonous, and accountability isn't fireworks. It's neighbors choosing each other over fear. Maria said it best one evening, walking past Karen's shuttered house. She thought the neighborhood belonged to her. Ms. Pearl handed me a lemon bar and shrugged. Turns out it belongs to everyone else. I learned that my life mattered enough for strangers to stand up, and that a community can be a remedy when institutions wobble. The moral isn't that vengeance heals, it doesn't, but that accountability and collective care can restore the simple human right to breathe without fear, and that dignity is worth defending even when it's inconvenient. We closed it with a block party barbecue, kids on bounce houses, music, and a cardboard dunk tank with a caricature of our former HOA queen, mostly jokes and relief, no malice, just a celebration of normalcy. I sat on the porch with my oxygen machine humming beside me, visible, proud, ordinary, and finally safe. Reporters came, we declined because it wasn't about the spotlight. It was about being able to sleep without someone measuring the angle of your curtains. So here's the question I want to leave hanging like a cord when someone takes it upon themselves to enforce standards from the top of their hedge. Who gets to decide which lives matter more than others? And what do you do when property values are pitted against a human life? Tell me, have you ever seen justice served or denied by a community? Drop your story below. Tell me what you would have done, and let's talk about where the line between civic duty and cruelty really lies.